Tian Yunzi furrowed his brow. Wang Lin's eyes flickered, his thoughts turning rapidly. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you." Ling Tianho glanced at Tian Yunzi and sneered. "Tian Yunzi, according to our agreement, it's time for me to intervene, isn't it?" Tian Yunzi relaxed his brow, remained silent for a moment, then smiled faintly. With a deep, meaningful glance at Wang Lin, he said calmly, "In that case, let it be." His words were light, and with a turn of his body, he vanished into a swirl of seven-colored light. This scene caused Wang Lin's mind to tremble. He stared at the spot where Tian Yunzi had disappeared and fell into contemplation. Ling Tianho's expression instantly darkened. He frowned and, after a moment, slapped his storage pouch. 5 turtle shells floated out and began spinning in his hand as he occasionally formed seals. After a while, Ling Tianho's face grew even darker. He muttered to himself, "What exactly is Tian Yunzi playing at?" His thoughts lingered as he glanced at Wang Lin. This Wang Lin must be of great importance if Tian Yunzi is plotting so much for him. He must be making tremendous progress in his cultivation path, especially since he is one of the vermilion bird sequence. Tian Yunzi's plans for him must be significant, or he wouldn't risk offending the Four Saints sect for this person. If this succeeds, Wang Lin will surely possess power that will shock the Four Saints sect. The more I think about it, the more I must stop this. If Tian Yunzi succeeds, I'll have no hope of turning my fate around. Ling Tianho's thoughts flickered rapidly. However, if Wang Lin is truly so important to him, why did he leave so calmly just now? Even the divination can't predict whether this matter will end in fortune or disaster. It's strange. Ling Tianho's face darkened further, and with a deep sigh, he looked at Wang Lin and said slowly, "Wang Lin, even if I hadn't come to save you today, Tian Yunzi wouldn't dare to kill you so easily. After all, you are from the vermilion bird sequence." From start to finish, Wang Lin had been pondering the relationship between Ling Tianho and Tian Yunzi. Upon hearing these words, he cupped his fists and said, "There are 3 of us in the vermilion bird sequence. I'm just one of them. In any case, I will always remember Sword Venerable's kindness." Ling Tianho nodded and smiled. "When the Vermilion Sacred Emperor achieved his Tao, I was just a junior. He helped me a great deal, but it's been so long that I doubt he even remembers. You are from the Vermilion Bird sequence, and if fate allows, you will be the next Vermilion Sacred Emperor. We should consider ourselves equals. After all, you are no longer a disciple of Tian Yunzi." Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he cupped his fists again. "Sword Venerable is too kind. In that case, I will follow your advice." Ling Tianho laughed heartily and stretched out his hand. "Fellow Taoist Wang, come with me to the Great Luo Star. Once the tidal abyss opens, we will go together to that immortal abode. Please." Wang Lin nodded with a smile. The 2 of them sped along. The Great Luo Star wasn't far, and both were great divine ability practitioners, so their speed was naturally incredibly fast. It wasn't long before they saw the Great Luo Star in the distance. Along the way, Ling Tianho refrained from mentioning the fact that Wang Lin had killed his disciple many years ago. It was as if he had forgotten about it, and instead, he talked to Wang Lin about immortal arts and Tao techniques. This could be said to be their first in-depth conversation. Although Wang Lin didn't speak much, every word he uttered made Ling Tianho's eyes shine with admiration. This Wang Lin truly deserves to be part of the vermilion bird sequence. His cultivation is profound, but his insights and understanding of the Tao are equally impressive. During their conversation, Wang Lin was also contemplating that thread of extreme yang. His mind was filled with plans, and despite thinking over Tian Yunzi's earlier casualness, he couldn't figure out his intentions. Yet, Wang Lin had a vague suspicion. Perhaps all of Tian Yunzi's actions weren't for him, but for. Wang Lin glanced at Ling Tianho beside him. It's this Ling Tianho. From a distance, the Great Luo Star appeared mostly water blue, yet countless sword energies surrounded it. These sword energies looked chaotic and disordered, some scattered, but to someone with the right level of cultivation, it was obvious that these weren't just random sword energies. They were the natural emissions of the Great Luo Star. Because of this, they appeared disordered, but Wang Lin could immediately tell that if someone were to control these sword energies, their power would be world-shattering. This great Luo star didn't originally belong to the Tianyun star range. It was a task I completed for the Kungsu cultivation sect. Afterward, I was gifted this star. It came from a massive void star that was constantly burning, and its size could compare to more than 1,000 Tianyun stars. Ling Tianho spoke in a calm tone, though there was a hint of pride in his voice. Kungsu. Wang Lin's expression shifted as he heard the word for the second time. The first time had been when Qing Shui mentioned it, suggesting that the Alliance Star Domain was once known as the Kungsu Star Domain long ago. Is it a cultivation sect by the name of Kungsu? Wang Lin's eyes reflected deep thought. The Kungsu cultivation sect is the only 9th-level cultivation nation within this Alliance Star Domain, but it's simply called the Kungsu cultivation sect by the people. Ling Tianho glanced at Wang Lin and immediately noticed his lack of understanding, offering a brief explanation. Only they retained the ancient title, Kungsu. Ling Tianho's eyes showed signs of nostalgia. Within the Alliance Star Domain, almost all cultivators who reach a certain level of power may disrespect the Cultivation Alliance, but they hold the Kungsu cultivation sect in deep reverence. It's even an honor to receive an invitation from them. Every 3,000 years, the Kungsu cultivation sect sends out 3 invitation tokens to select cultivators they deem worthy, allowing them to enter the Kungsu territory for cultivation. Back in the day, Tian Yunzi and I were both invited together. Kungsu. Wang Lin fell silent, processing what Ling Tianho had said. After a moment, his eyes flashed as he spoke in a low voice. If someone enters every 3,000 years, then the Kungsu cultivation sect must also send people out. Of course, they send people out. Do you recall the woman who resembled a common village girl when you first arrived at Tianyun sect a few days ago? She was the 3rd person who entered the Kungsu cultivation sect with Tian Yunzi and me. She had a female disciple by her side, and if my guess is right, that disciple came from the Kungsu cultivation sect. Wang Lin froze for a moment. The first person who came to mind was the girl in the pink attire who had invited him before leaving. The Kungsu cultivation sect preserves the ancient traditions of the immortal realm, always having one Kungsu holy maiden. I wonder if that female disciple is the Kungsu holy maiden. Kungsu holy maiden. Wang Lin rubbed his brow. Everything Ling Tianho had said was news to him. Your Four Saints sect was once the dominant power in Kungsu long ago. Unfortunately, Ling Tianho shook his head, not continuing the topic. However, Wang Lin's heart shook as the words echoed in his mind. The Four Saints sect, the former overlord of Kungsu. Wang Lin had speculated on the strength of the Four Saints sect, but never imagined it was far greater than he'd thought. As they approached, the great Luo star grew larger in Wang Lin's eyes. This was his first time here, and the closer he got, the more he could feel the endless sword energy emanating from the star at all times. The oceans of this star took up most of the land, and the only sect here was the great Luo sword sect. The towering structures appeared one after another in Wang Lin's sight. On the ground, disciples of the great Luo sword sect soared into the air, floating in the sky. Looking at them, Wang Lin saw at least tens of thousands. What struck Wang Lin as strange, however, was that most of these disciples were at the winding stage, with very few at the Yin deficiency stage, and there was not a single one at the Yang fulfillment stage. Odd, isn't it? The great Luo sword sect is so grand, yet there are so few true second-step cultivators. Ling Tianho smiled slightly. Wang Lin nodded and responded, "It is indeed strange." The disciples of Tianyun sect, particularly those from the 7 systems, suppress their cultivation every day, fearing that they might lose control and have their seal broken, being devoured by that old man Tianyun. But in our great Luo sword sect, that's not the case. The truly advanced second-step cultivators simply have other matters to attend to. At that moment, tens of thousands of disciples of the great Luo sword sect were all standing with great swords on their backs. As Wang Lin and Ling Tianho descended, these disciples immediately bowed in unison, their voices resounding like thunder. "Welcome, Sect Master Sword Venerable." The sound echoed throughout the great Luo star like a mighty storm. Ling Tianho laughed heartily. At that moment, dozens of disciples flew from the crowd and quickly gathered around him, bowing respectfully. Some of them were the ones who had gone with Ling Tianho to Tianyun sect, and had met Wang Lin before. Seeing Wang Lin, their expressions turned odd, clearly puzzled about why he was with Ling Tianhou. Wang Lin glanced over the tens of thousands of disciples, his heart stirred. During the battle in the Northern Alliance, I encountered the dragon of the 12 earthly branches, but now, there's no sign of him here. Ling Tianhou flicked his sleeve, and in an instant, he flew toward the tallest tower on the planet. From now on, Wang Lin will be an elder of the great Luo sword sect. With that, Ling Tianhou entered the giant tower with a single flicker. Elder Wang, I must go into seclusion for several months. During this time, you will be in no danger here on Great Luo Star. Ling Tianhou's divine sense entered Wang Lin's ears, lingering for a while. After Ling Tianhou entered the massive tower, the tens of thousands of disciples from the Great Luo sword sect all turned their gaze toward Wang Lin. Being the center of attention was nothing new to him. His expression remained calm as his divine sense spread out like a storm, sweeping across the surroundings. At the early glimpse of Nirvana stage, Wang Lin's divine sense was far beyond what any of these disciples could withstand. With just a sweep, their faces changed dramatically, and the awe in their eyes grew as they looked at him. This is where I'll be staying, Wang Lin said flatly. A beautiful female cultivator stepped forward and stopped 10 paces from Wang Lin, bowing respectfully. Disciple Zhou Xiu greets elder. Your arrival was sudden. Normally, elders choose their own residence. Her voice was a little tense. Wang Lin took a single step forward and vanished, reappearing 1,000 miles away beside a high tower on the sect's outskirts. He gave it a brief glance, did not enter, and instead sat cross-legged outside. With a casual wave of his right hand, a vast field of restrictions manifested and shimmered around him. As for the disciples of the Great Luo sword sect, they began dispersing in discussion, occasionally glancing toward where Wang Lin sat. Seated in silence, Wang Lin's eyes darkened. What had unfolded recently gave him a distinct feeling. Tian Yunzi had anticipated every step. It was as if Wang Lin's every move had been calculated in advance. Tian Yunzi, years ago I caused you to make one misstep. Today, I'll make you miscalculate completely. Wang Lin slapped his storage pouch, and a wisp of supreme yang instantly appeared in his hand, emanating waves of scorching heat. He dared not grip it tightly, only holding it with an open palm, because he had a deep sense. If he grasped it fully, the heat might immediately bore through his palm. Even his essence spirit could be severely injured. If not for possessing the ancient god physique, even this loose hold would be unbearable. If my ancient god body were just a bit stronger, maybe I could hold it without harm. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He wasn't concerned about Ling Tianhou detecting the presence of this wisp. It was, after all, a karmic construct formed through Tian Yunzi's scheming. If someone else took it away, that might dissolve the current predicament. But that would merely be a resolution, not a true break. To break the scheme meant to catch Tian Yunzi off guard, to force a complete miscalculation. After a long silence, Wang Lin gritted his teeth. Holding the supreme yang loosely, he suddenly pressed it to his forehead. A searing pain exploded from his brow as the supreme yang merged into his skin and vanished. But within him, it was as if a sea of fire had ignited. Waves of unimaginable heat surged through his entire body, as if he had been thrown into the furnace of heaven and earth, roasted madly from within. Back inside the colossal tower piercing the sky onto Luo Star, Ling Tianhou sat cross-legged, his eyes flashing with a strange light. The crack at his brow, which had closed before, split open once more. He stared toward Wang Lin's location, eyes narrowing in thought. This is Supreme Yang. His gaze sharpened. That old man Tian Yunzi used a thread of Supreme Yang as bait. But for what? Ling Tianhou slowly raised his right hand, held it in the air, then gently lowered it with a shake of his head, murmuring, Tian Yunzi, don't tell me you want me to seize that wisp. Inside Wang Lin, the sea of fire surged violently. White steam burst from his skin, soon soaking his robes completely. Strangely, though, the fabric showed no signs of burning. Beads of sweat the size of peas poured from his body, instantly drenching him. The fire raged like a storm, pounding through his insides with booming force. The heat reached terrifying levels in mere moments. The unbearable pain twisted his expression, as if a mortal had swallowed a red-hot coal. The searing torment in his body was beyond description. If not for his immense willpower, he would have screamed in agony. Any other cultivator, even one more powerful than Wang Lin, would have crumbled under such burning intensity. Only his ancient god physique made it survivable, but not indefinitely. Time crawled by. Though only a stick of incense had burned, it felt like years to Wang Lin. The internal blaze intensified, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. Suddenly, his eyes flew open. Two azure flames seemed to blaze within them. Around his body, formless fire now spread, and under its baking pressure, the air itself began to crack with sharp, brittle sounds. As the firestorm raged on, Wang Lin could hold back no longer. He let out a thunderous roar, the sound erupting like a peal of thunder. At that very moment, far away on Destiny's Star, atop the trident-shaped immortal mountain of Tianyun Sect, Tian Yunzi sat cross-legged. His eyes, which had been shut, opened slightly, filled with a gaze that seemed to pierce through the fabric of reality. His sight fixed on the heavens, as if seeing directly to Wang Lin on the Luo star. Tian Yunzi's expression remained unchanged, though his brow furrowed slightly. This is not something you can absorb. In 7 more breaths, you'll spit it back out. 1, 2. Tian Yunzi's eyes were clear and focused as he chanted slowly. On the great Luo star, where Wang Lin was located, a bizarre crimson hue radiated from his entire body. This red came from the searing heat within him reaching its peak. As waves of burning energy surged through him, an endless sea of fire rampaged throughout his body. Within moments, the inferno had spread to every corner of his flesh. At that exact moment, Tian Yunzi counted to 5. 6. With a thunderous boom, the sea of fire inside Wang Lin exploded, coursing wildly through his body. In an instant, a massive cloud of blood burst from him. He felt as if, unless he expelled this supreme yang at once, he would be reduced to ashes on the spot. 7. Tian Yunzi softly uttered the final number. And in that instant, the fire within Wang Lin completely erupted. The storm of flames it birthed roared ferociously, gathering from every part of his body and surging directly toward his essence spirit to incinerate it. Yet just as annihilation loomed, a swirling mist materialized within Wang Lin's essence spirit, and from within it, the heavenly reversal pearl emerged. The moment the heavenly reversal pearl appeared, the raging sea of fire charging toward his essence spirit froze mid-rush. A strange suction force seemed to emanate from the pearl, pulling the entire inferno into itself. Wang Lin's eyes gleamed. The excruciating pain vanished in a flash, replaced by an indescribable relief and exhilaration. As the heavenly reversal pearl absorbed every flame, the sun's sigil on its surface began to glow intensely. Though invisible to others, Wang Lin alone could see the devastating light radiating from it. At that same moment, Ling Tianho, seated cross-legged inside the great tower observing Wang Lin closely, suddenly cried out. His eyes snapped shut as if scorched, and before he could rise, his body jerked backward at astonishing speed. Just moments earlier, he had seen the fire inside Wang Lin vanish in an instant. Then, a terrifying premonition struck him, a chilling sense that catastrophe was imminent. He had never felt this kind of danger, not even when facing Tian Yunzi. The last time he sensed anything remotely like it was tens of thousands of years ago, within the Kungsu cultivation sect. Now, as the same feeling surged through him, a feeling that if he didn't retreat, his soul would be annihilated, Ling Tianho gasped involuntarily. "What is that light?" he shouted in terror. His face contorted in panic as he sensed an unseen force approaching at breakneck speed. In horror, he slapped his forehead, and with a flash of black light, the sword phantom, the one that had appeared during his battle with the gray-robed Tian Yunzi, instantly materialized. Without a moment's thought, he sent it hurtling forward. Just as the sword phantom shot out, the formless light manifested before it and collided with a soundless, invisible explosion. No one else could hear it, nor even sense it, but Ling Tianho immediately coughed up a massive spray of blood. His body was flung backward, crashing through the tower wall and tumbling outside. The sword phantom trembled violently, nearly collapsing, and let out a mournful shriek as it fled back into Ling Tianho's brow. His face turned ghostly pale again, and another mouthful of blood gushed out. His body weakened instantly. Terrified to his core, scalp tingling, Ling Tianhou didn't hesitate. With a flash, he vanished into the earth, fleeing straight toward the center of the great Luo star. As he escaped, his hands formed seals in rapid succession, unlocking layers upon layers of seals ahead of him. Panic consumed his mind. The only thought he had left was to reach the great Luo star's core as fast as possible. Meanwhile, atop Trident Mountain on Destiny Star, Tian Yunzi's calm expression changed dramatically in an instant. Such a shift in demeanor was exceedingly rare for him, almost unheard of. Anyone who might have seen him now would find it hard to believe. Tian Yunzi, who was always composed, whose calculations never failed, whose expression never changed even if Mount Tai crumbled before him, had now lost his composure. And more than that, there was shock in his eyes. For someone like Tian Yunzi, a member of the Alliance Elder Council, the Master of Destiny Star, whose mind was as deep and vast as the ocean, to reveal even a trace of shock in his gaze would send tremors through the entire Cultivation Alliance and astonish anyone who knew him. He gasped, his face filled with disbelief. His hands moved at lightning speed, sweeping forward to conjure a multicolored cloud layer that surged outward as if to block some oncoming force. But before the rainbow cloud could drift even half a meter, it shattered with a deafening crash, as if struck by an unspeakable force. Amid the collapse, a hand emerged, conjured from the void, reaching directly for Tian Yunzi in a fierce, unstoppable grab. His figure exploded backward. All he could hear now was the deafening pounding of his own heart, faster and faster, as if it might burst from his chest. His face grew dark as he retreated, hands forming seals without hesitation. With a low shout, he cried, "Power of the Big Dipper!" As soon as the words left his mouth, the world itself seemed to change color. A series of long rainbows suddenly descended from the sky, intertwining to form a seven-colored arc. In the blink of an eye, it landed on Tian Yunzi, who was retreating rapidly. Tian Yunzi's eyes flashed, and he slammed his right hand forward with great force. Immediately, the seven-colored rainbow transformed into a swirling vortex, sweeping away with dazzling brilliance. Even more astonishing was that within the vortex, 7 sparkling star-like points could be seen. Within the Cultivation Alliance, there was an ancient legend that spoke of the Southern and Northern Big Dippers. The Master of the Southern Dipper had died, while the Master of the Northern Dipper was born. Each held dominion over the power of the stars. Whether this legend was true or not, the Tian Yunzi before them, under his divine ability, had actually manifested what was described in the legend. As the seven-colored vortex howled, it blocked the space between Tian Yunzi and the massive hand that stretched out from the void. However, just as the vortex tried to obstruct it, the giant hand completely ignored the presence of the seven-colored vortex and directly passed through, as if everything before it was nothing but an illusion. Tian Yunzi's face changed dramatically. His figure retreated once again, and he pointed forward with his right hand, shouting, "7 stars shattering immortals." With a deafening explosion, one of the star points within the seven-colored vortex erupted. At the same time, the other 6 points also exploded, creating an unimaginable shockwave that swept in all directions. However, despite this, the massive hand showed no sign of slowing down. It continued to pass through the shockwave and lunged toward Tian Yunzi with incredible force. What is this? Tian Yunzi's eyes widened in intense shock. Having cultivated for countless millennia, he had never encountered such an eerie phenomenon. At this moment, his mind shook. His eyes burst with seven-colored light, and as his figure retreated, he took a deep breath. With a swift gesture, he chanted, "Heavenly Fortune Art." The Heavenly Fortune Art was the pinnacle of Tian Yunzi's magical abilities. Only in the direst of circumstances could he be compelled to use this technique, one he hadn't performed in over 10,000 years. Yet now, he cast it without hesitation. This was all because Tian Yunzi sensed a life-threatening danger that he had almost forgotten. The source of this danger was that massive hand. With a soft chant, Tian Yunzi pointed to the sky, and immediately the entire sky of the Tianyun star trembled as if shaking violently. The clouds dispersed rapidly, revealing a clear and bright sky. In that sky, as Tian Yunzi pointed with his right hand, a scene appeared that left all who witnessed it in stunned silence. A colossal circular object, stretching across tens of thousands of miles, emerged at an incredible speed. Viewed from below, it appeared to be a gigantic compass. On its surface, countless runic markings were densely arranged, flashing with light that seemed capable of entrancing the soul. The object was so enormous that after it appeared, Tianyun's star seemed minuscule in comparison. Tian Yunzi's eyes glowed with a strange light, his expression extremely serious. His hands formed another seal and pointed at the sky once more, shouting, "By the mandate of heaven!" As soon as the words were spoken, a thunderous roar echoed through the sky. The sound reverberated throughout the entire Tianyun star and even spread through the outer cosmos, leaving lingering echoes far away. In the wake of the great explosion, the enormous illusory compass slowly began to rotate. With each turn, it seemed to carry the unimaginable power to reverse the laws of heaven and earth. Retreating swiftly, Tian Yunzi flickered in the air. As the giant hand reached out to grab him, he darted straight toward the center of the massive compass in the sky. Once close, he began to perform rapid calculations with his right hand. The more he calculated, the darker his expression became. By the end, his face was ashen. Though all of this seemed slow, in reality, it happened in the blink of an eye. This thing is impossible to resist. Tian Yunzi's eyes flickered. He spun his right hand in front of him, and the massive compass behind him began to turn again. The booming sound of its movement filled the air, and strange forces erupted from the compass, swirling like fluffy clouds in front of Tian Yunzi, attempting to block the massive hand. The rotation speed isn't enough. After cultivating for tens of thousands of years, I refuse to believe I can't figure out how to break this thing. Heavenly Fortune Art, activate 6 Dao Seals. Tian Yunzi shouted, and instantly the illusory compass shook violently. It began to expand at an unimaginable speed. Its size, which had already been boundless, was now rapidly increasing to an unimaginable scale. In the outer sky of Tianyun's star, it was clear to see the vast shadow of the compass looming over the star. The compass was entirely black and white, continuously flashing with light. Compared to the compass, Tianyun's star seemed less than 1/10 its size. As the compass expanded, its rotation caused an earth-shattering roar that echoed throughout the entire starry sky. Tian Yunzi's silver hair swirled in the air as if moved by an invisible wind. His right hand moved in countless blurry motions as he frantically calculated. His eyes began to show signs of urgency, with bloodshot veins appearing as the pressure mounted. The massive hand grew closer and closer, heading straight for Tian Yunzi. It was now less than 30 yards away, and in that instant, a brilliant light flashed in Tian Yunzi's eyes. He suddenly raised his head, and his right hand froze mid-motion. I can't calculate the beginning and the end, but I can calculate how to resist this thing. Tian Yunzi hesitated for a moment, letting out a soft sigh. Then without further thought, his right hand pressed against his forehead. The motion appeared quick, but in reality, it contained countless hand seals from Tian Yunzi, each one transforming into eternity, becoming singular and unique, directly pressing onto his brow. A thunderous roar like the crashing of thunder echoed in Tian Yunzi's mind. It felt as though a great storm was raging within his soul. His body shook, and virtual shadows of himself began to pour out of him frantically. These shadows were all copies of Tian Yunzi, and once they appeared, they immediately spread out in all directions. Everywhere one looked, there were only Tian Yunzi. If this thing wants to absorb the primordial energy of heaven and earth, let it. The countless virtual shadows surrounding Tian Yunzi suddenly moved, all rushing towards the approaching massive hand. At the forefront, a Tian Yunzi dressed in red, as soon as he approached, was immediately grabbed by the hand. His body trembled, then with a deafening crash, he was destroyed. But instead of scattering, he and everything else merged into the hand. The sounds of crashing continued as one after another. The virtual shadows of Tian Yunzi collapsed and were absorbed. Tian Yunzi's real body at the back grew increasingly pale, but his eyes flickered with the sharpness of calculation. I want to see how much this thing can absorb. In just 10 breaths, all the virtual shadows collapsed under the rumbling sound, completely absorbed by the massive hand. But it seemed the hand was not satisfied, as it drew closer once again. The flicker of calculation in Tian Yunzi's eyes became even more intense. Without hesitation, his right hand pressed against his forehead once more. With a loud bang, his body trembled, and over 1,000 copies of himself appeared, charging forward one by one. This back and forth continued until the fourth time Tian Yunzi gritted his teeth and pressed his right hand to his brow. After his 1,000 copies were absorbed by the massive hand, it slowly began to retreat, no longer paying attention to Tian Yunzi. Gradually, it seemed to vanish into the void. This was the moment Tian Yunzi had been waiting for. Too many of his illusory copies had been devoured by the massive hand, something he could not accept. No matter what divine power you are, today, however much primordial energy you've absorbed from me, you will have to spit it all back out. Tian Yunzi's figure flashed. In the instant the hand was about to disappear, he raised his right hand and slammed it down onto a mountain peak that resembled a trident. With a deafening roar, the earth trembled violently. From the 3 peaks, large chunks of rocks fell with a crashing sound, rolling down the mountainside, and massive dust clouds were kicked up, forming a thick mist. The peaks shook, and cracks began to form with sharp snapping sounds, rapidly spreading. It looked as though the 3 peaks were about to collapse. "Destiny Trident," Tian Yunzi shouted. With a final explosive sound, the 3 peaks completely collapsed. Amid the falling rocks, 3 silver beams of light flickered from within the mountains. The ground trembled to its peak, and the ripples spread. Numerous cultivators began rushing into the air. As the 3 silver lights became more exposed from the crumbling peaks, Tian Yunzi reached out into the void. With a booming sound, the dazzling silver light shot upwards. In the blink of an eye, the silver light fell into Tian Yunzi's hand, revealing a 10-zhong-long trident. The trident was entirely silver, shimmering with silver light, and exuded an aura of ancient, savage power. Holding the trident, Tian Yunzi's eyes glinted with sharpness. He threw it forward with all his might. The trident moved at an incredible speed, accompanied by a sharp whistling sound, heading straight for the now largely vanished massive hand. The silver light flickered as the trident whooshed forward, piercing directly through the massive hand and flashing through it. The hand paused, and an endless surge of primordial energy erupted from the spot where the trident had pierced it, scattering wildly. The released primordial energy immediately surged towards Tian Yunzi, transforming into virtual shadows and merging into his body. The massive hand halted for a moment, its energy reversing from the brink of disappearing. It slowly drew itself out of the void and rushed towards Tian Yunzi. With the intensity of the calculation in Tian Yunzi's eyes growing, he retreated, his right hand reaching into the void once more. He grabbed the trident that had pierced the hand, and it transformed into a silver streak, rushing back toward the hand. But just as he prepared to pierce the hand again, it turned and caught the trident with a powerful grip. There was a loud crash as the trident shattered, and silver sparks flew, quickly absorbed by the massive hand. This scene was but a fleeting moment. The hand loosened its grip on the trident, ignored it, and moved directly toward Tian Yunzi. Just as Tian Yunzi was about to retreat, the hand reached out into the void and grasped at him. With this grasp, Tian Yunzi's body trembled violently, as though a phantom hand had completely seized him. After the giant hand grabbed hold, it immediately squeezed fiercely. As it did, Tian Yunzi's face turned pale, and a multitude of illusory shadows instantly emerged from his body. The moment these shadows appeared, they were immediately absorbed into the giant hand. This absorption was several times faster than the previous time Tian Yunzi had released his illusory shadows. As a result, the loss for him was unimaginable. In just 10 breaths, the hand nearly became solid, but it didn't continue to absorb. Instead, it slowly loosened, gradually retracting and vanishing into the void. At this moment, Tian Yunzi dared not pursue further. His face had lost all color, and his eyes revealed a trace of confusion. His body staggered as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. I was wrong. First, I made a mistake with Wang, which led to this thing. Then I made another mistake with it, causing even more devouring. Tian Yunzi muttered to himself, turning and retrieving his trident. With a single step, he returned to the Destiny Star without hesitation, immediately entering seclusion. That illusory hand had no intention of killing. It was only absorbing. Once it absorbs enough, it will leave. Unfortunately, while I foresaw the previous events, I didn't anticipate that the hand wasn't a lifeless object, but something with spirit controlling it. Tian Yunzi let out a bitter smile. If he hadn't taken the initiative to strike, his losses would have been much less. But now, all he could do was sigh. Although it was only 10 breaths, if it had been any other shattered Nirvana cultivator, their flesh, energy, and everything else would have been completely absorbed. With a sigh, Tian Yunzi's appearance aged rapidly. He knew that he hadn't just lost primordial energy. Most importantly, there was a crack in his once perfect Tao heart. Before this, I had only missed once in my entire life's calculations of destiny. Tian Yunzi sat cross-legged on a green stone in the back mountain of Tianyun Sect. His face visibly aged at an alarming rate. Years ago, during the upheaval in the Alliance Elder Council, I made my first miscalculation and my Tao heart cracked. But then, by chance, I encountered him. Even though it was just a single glance, it brought me enlightenment. A crack in my Tao heart from a miscalculation slowly began to heal. After tens of thousands of years, through continuous understanding, my Tao heart was once again perfected. I formed my own heavenly Tao, replacing the Tao of the world with my own. But today, I've made 2 mistakes in a row. Tian Yunzi's face showed bitterness. Previously, when Wang Lin was in the land of demonic spirits, I made an error, but it eventually fell back into my calculations. Yet this time, I first miscalculated with him, and then with the illusory hand. Tian Yunzi shook his head, staring blankly at the sky. After a long while, he slowly closed his eyes, and a soft sigh echoed in his heart, lingering forever. Meanwhile, Ling Tianho was in a state of panic. His scalp tingled as he raced through the depths of the earth. He could clearly feel that the formless light was relentlessly chasing him. Every seal and array in his path had no effect on it. In a state of utter fear, Ling Tianho dove into the edge of the Great Luo Star, gritting his teeth as he entered. When I obtained the Great Luo Star, I knew it contained a fire left behind by the ethereal sage of the Kungsu cultivation sect. It was left when he refined this star. I hope the sacrificial flame can help resist the danger now. Ling Tianho immediately felt a wave of heat as he entered the interior of the Great Luo Star. Behind him, the formless light quickly closed in, piercing through and transforming into a giant hand, reaching out to grab Ling Tianho. Cold sweat drenched his body as he fled, his heart screaming, "What is this? I was just using my divine sense to observe Wang Lin. Why is it relentlessly pursuing me?" He gritted his teeth and sped up, his eyes fixed on the place where the sacrificial flame was said to be. Just as he was about to reach it, the giant hand behind him flicked its fingers. With a booming sound, Ling Tianho coughed up a large mouthful of blood, but his body moved even faster, breaking through and seeing ahead a flame engulfed in fire. This flame took the shape of a black fire phoenix, vermilion bird. In that instant, Ling Tianho's body trembled. A great force gathered from all directions, trapping him firmly. At the same time, as the giant hand squeezed once more, Ling Tianho's face turned pale. He could feel his flesh, energy, and even his essence, spirit, and soul being frantically sucked away in that moment. No matter how much he struggled, it was futile. In just 6 breaths, Ling Tianho's eyes widened in despair. He could no longer even manage to utter a cry. But at that moment of utter hopelessness, a strange black glow flickered on his forehead, spreading throughout his body, momentarily halting the suctioning force. Meanwhile, the illusory giant hand that had been gripping Ling Tianho unexpectedly loosened and slowly retracted, vanishing into the void. Ling Tianho stared blankly at the scene, feeling a sudden sense of having narrowly escaped death. What he didn't know was that, had it not been for the severe losses suffered by Tian Yunzi, he would have already been completely absorbed and devoured by now. However, even so, the 6 breaths just now had still drained most of his internal energy. Ling Tianho forced a bitter smile and sighed inwardly. He had no idea what had transpired with Tian Yunzi, but he had made up his mind. He would not venture out lightly. Instead, he would enter seclusion right here and focus on recovering as much of his cultivation as possible. As for seeking revenge against Wang Lin for the loss of his cultivation, Ling Tianho was now terrified. The moment the thought crossed his mind, he quickly dismissed it. He had no intention of facing that eerie giant hand again. Sitting cross-legged outside the great Luo Sword Sect's high tower, Wang Lin's body was no longer surrounded by the sea of fire. In its place, bright rays of light emitted from the heavenly reversal pearl. He could clearly sense that the moment the light flared from the heavenly reversal pearl, it split into two beams, one shooting directly toward Ling Tianho inside the massive tower, while the other flashed and merged into the void, disappearing without a trace. Not long after, the two beams of light returned almost simultaneously. They merged into the heavenly reversal pearl, which was embedded in his essence spirit. At that instant, the heavenly reversal pearl vibrated violently. The sun and moon patterns that had been on its surface now seemed to possess a life of their own. The radiant light began to emanate from the circular sun, especially after absorbing the two beams of light. The sun began to slowly spin. This scene was unnoticed by anyone other than Wang Lin. Inside the great Luo Sword Sect, because of Ling Tianho's drastic changes, all the disciples scattered in confusion, their faces showing confusion and bewilderment. Externally, Wang Lin's posture appeared calm, with no signs of unusual activity. However, internally, the heavenly reversal pearl absorbing the supreme yang energy had stirred up a massive storm within his body. The sun pattern on the heavenly reversal pearl continued to spin faster and faster. By the end, it nearly became a whirlwind of light, sweeping through Wang Lin's essence spirit and divine sense. Everything within him was enveloped by the light. This light carried a gentle warmth, and Wang Lin did not feel any discomfort. In fact, he felt a sense of comfort. Under the spreading light, his mind and spirit grew calm. The flow of primordial energy in his body gradually accelerated under the light's radiance. With every complete cycle, some of the light merged into the energy, and eventually, his primordial energy underwent a subtle, yet intense transformation. As the energy changed, his essence spirit began to shift as well. Normally resembling an ancient thunder dragon, it now began to form a swirling red energy mass above the dragon's figure. This energy mass slowly rotated, continuously absorbing the light's power and gradually growing in size. Not only his essence spirit, but even his physical body was subtly altered under the light. His ancient god physique was already extraordinarily powerful, but it had been further enhanced by the absorption of this light. As time passed, his skin took on a healthy glow, with beads of crystal-clear sweat emerging and vanishing in the breeze. Though the air held a slight chill, Wang Lin didn't feel it at all. Within a radius of about 100 feet around him, a layer of scorching heat now spread, causing anything attempting to approach to halt immediately. Anyone who dared to move closer would be instantly destroyed. In this relatively peaceful environment, Wang Lin remained motionless for 10 days. Throughout this time, he was completely absorbed in the overwhelming changes occurring within him. His cultivation had already reached the threshold of the mid-glimpse of Nirvana stage during the earlier battle with Luo Tian and the Alliance. Yet, for 10 days, no significant progress had been made, as comprehending the Tao could not be rushed. However, on the 11th day, with another change in the heavenly reversal pearl, a breakthrough occurred. The rotating sun pattern on the heavenly reversal pearl slowed down, and by noon on the 11th day, it finally came to a complete stop. In that moment, the third eye on Wang Lin's forehead suddenly opened on its own. A flash of red light burst from within, and the primordial force within him flowed into the sun pattern of the heavenly reversal pearl. Much of Wang Lin's primordial force came from the battle scripture, with a small portion absorbed from his understanding of the rune clan on Vermilion Bird Star. Both powers were of the same origin and merged perfectly. They had been stored in his third eye, becoming Wang Lin's ultimate life-saving divine ability in battles. At this moment, as the incredibly rare primordial force merged with the heavenly reversal pearl, it was as if a key had been turned to open the door to the heavenly reversal. The pearl trembled violently, and a powerful force erupted from within, pulling Wang Lin's divine sense and sucking it into the heavenly reversal pearl. Wang Lin felt his vision blur, but when it cleared, he saw the familiar scene. In this seemingly formless, boundless place, there stood a colossal gate, towering to the heavens. In front of it, Wang Lin appeared no bigger than an ant. He stood frozen, gazing at the gate. Every time he saw it, he was struck by an indescribable shock, especially when it had opened all those years ago. He had lost himself in its depths with just a glance. When he awoke, he vaguely understood the concept of the primordial source. After a long silence, Wang Lin drifted forward, growing ever closer to the gate. As he neared it, the gate rumbled loudly and slowly opened a crack. The moment the crack appeared, an unimaginable shockwave erupted from it, invisible yet palpable. It rushed toward Wang Lin in an instant, causing him to shudder. His footsteps halted, and once again, as before, he lost himself. However, this time, as soon as he began to lose himself, a wave of scorching heat emanated from the gate, enveloping Wang Lin's body, which had remained outside. His mind jolted, and he snapped back to consciousness. Supreme Yang. Wang Lin distinctly felt that the heat was the supreme Yang force absorbed by the heavenly reversal. In silence, Wang Lin's eyes revealed a moment of understanding. 5 elements perfection allows the heavenly reversal gate to appear, but it only appears. Entering it is impossible. Just like me back then, I stopped at the gate, lost within. After the 5 elements comes Yin and Yang. Now, the heavenly reversal has absorbed the supreme Yang, and the yin-yang balance has reached half perfection. That's why, when I almost lost myself, I was able to awaken. But what is the role of supreme yin? What will happen when yin and yang are fully perfected? Wang Lin pondered for a long time, glancing at the heavenly reversal gate, and gently drifted forward. This time, although his gaze was fixed on the crack, there was no sense of loss. As he grew closer, standing just a step away from the crack, facing the imposing gate, the feeling of being an insignificant ant returned to his mind. Wang Lin's eyes grew determined. He lifted his foot and took a step toward the crack in the heavenly reversal gate, which supported the heavens and the earth. I must know the true secret of this heavenly reversal. The moment Wang Lin's right foot landed on the crack, he felt his body tremble as if an eerie wind blew out from within the gate, passing straight through him. With a deafening crash, Wang Lin felt as if his soul had been blown out, retreating rapidly along with the wind, vanishing into the endless void. As he retreated, Wang Lin's mind became fuzzy. He felt himself shrinking, as if 1,000 years had passed in the blink of an eye, and everything in the past seemed to reverse within his consciousness, ultimately settling back into his infancy, floating within his mother's womb. The rhythmic thumping of a heartbeat clearly entered Wang Lin's ears, and the long-lost affection of his parents mingled with his spirit. But this sensation was fleeting, vanishing with the reverse current of the eerie wind. Wang Lin clearly felt himself retreating once more. This time, however, it seemed as though an unusual force was blocking his path. But this force was nothing compared to the pushing wind. With a resounding crash, the strange force that had blocked his retreat shattered. Wang Lin saw an unbelievable sight, shaking his spirit deeply, something that was rare even in his over 1,000 years of cultivation. This is, Wang Lin mumbled. He saw the blue sky, the white clouds, and beneath them, a bird soaring with its wings spread wide. The bird was incredibly beautiful, its feathers vibrant, and it flew with agility. As it moved, it seemed to draw the arc of the heavenly Tao, gradually drifting away. Staring at the bird that continued to fly farther, Wang Lin had an odd feeling, as though this bird was himself. So familiar, so familiar. He saw the brief life of the bird, only a few decades long. To others, it may have seemed dull, but to Wang Lin, it felt as if a long-lost memory from a previous life had been stirred deeply within him, opening a long-forgotten door. Primordial source. This is the primordial source. Wang Lin's mind was like a thunderclap, as though he had caught a glimpse of an elusive thread. The bird's life was short, and Wang Lin watched as it died in the jaws of a giant python. His heart ached. The bird's final gaze, as though it saw through the void, met his eyes and opened up a memory that seemed impossible to retrieve, one that all the forces in the world could never have restored. With a thunderous crash, Wang Lin was once again pushed backward, carried along by the eerie wind. As he continued to retreat, that strange force that had obstructed his movement reappeared. This time, however, the force was much stronger than before. Under the influence of the eerie wind, the strange power remained unmoved, as if it were an eternal roar between heaven and earth, constantly colliding with the two forces. After a long while, with a loud bang, a crack appeared in the barrier formed by the strange force. The instant Wang Lin squeezed through the gap, he was immediately met with a blinding red glow. The red light was so piercing that before he could fully comprehend what was happening, an unimaginable force thrust him back, sending him flying. Wang Lin felt his entire body shatter, as though it were torn into countless pieces. As he was sent spiraling backward, his body exploded in an instant. In that moment of destruction, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. At that moment, he found himself still standing beneath the immense heavenly reversal gate. His right foot was suspended in midair, just about to step into the gate. Wang Lin took a deep breath, the shock in his eyes slowly subsiding. Everything that had just occurred was only in the instant when he had raised his foot, preparing to step through. Now, the crack in the heavenly reversal gate slowly closed, eventually fading into an illusion and disappearing before Wang Lin's eyes. Inside the great Luo sword sect, where Wang Lin sat cross-legged, he slowly opened his eyes. Looking at the scene before him in reality, Wang Lin fell silent. After a long pause, he sighed deeply and stood up. As he stood, an incredibly powerful aura erupted from his body, the intensity of which had reached the peak of the mid-glimpse of Nirvana stage. So this is the origin